Okay, folks, another thing while we're driving to church that I've said before and I'll say it again. Hopefully you guys can hear me. The reason why it's so hard for people to be Christian today and to do as God said and not just be Christian by title but actually live out the commandments, the Beatitudes, feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, take care of the poor, the widows, blah, 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 right? Everything we're supposed to be doing, keep holy the Sabbath day, is why? Because we're in the end times. And what did Jesus say? The love of many would grow cold. Okay, love of God and love of neighbor. People's hearts would be like hearts of stone in these last days. And we are in the last days, right? So, no wonder it's hard to do as God commands. Because what God commands is love. Love God and love neighbor. That's the greatest commandment, he says. It will fulfill the whole law, all the commandments. Nobody's really doing that. Nobody's going out of their way to love neighbor, to love enemies, to forgive, to obey. I don't think anybody gets it, or they don't care, because it requires, love is a choice and it requires you to do stuff. It requires sacrifice. And so therefore, that's why nothing's getting done and the church is not doing its job. And if the church doesn't do its job, guess what? The wicked elite government, the Satanists, will do it for us. In their way. And it's not based in love. It's based in control and communism and Marxism and Satanism and domination. And its ultimate goal is death and destruction. Remember, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. He's a murderer from the beginning, a father of lies. So of course anybody who works for him and follows him is going to be just like him. A chip of the old block. One of his children. That's why Jesus says, if you're not my child, then you're a child of the devil. There could be no in between. You're either my child and you'll be like me, and you'll do as I say, and that's how I know you'll love me, is if you obey my commandments, or you'll be like the devil who refuses to obey my commandments, who's cold-hearted and evil and self-centered. Nobody wants to help others because they're all self-centered. You understand? Why would you want to go and give your money to the poor, or feed the hungry, or shelter the naked, or the homeless, or clothe the naked? You're too busy living your own life. Oh, I work hard for my money. I gotta take care of me and my own. That's all I care about. Well, that's not love of God and love of neighbor, because you're not obeying God and you're not loving neighbor as you love yourself. What don't we understand about this? And yet many of us call ourselves Christians. You're not a real Christian unless you're living out what God told you to live out. Look, I can't believe I'm saying this as a Catholic. I love the show The Chosen, even though it's not always biblically accurate. If you watch that show, you'll learn about how the disciples are supposed to be. Okay? How Christians are supposed to live. Not just 2,000 years ago, but today. So, the world is the way it is because we are in the end times where the hearts of many have grown cold, like stone. Cold towards God, indifferent towards God, and indifferent towards neighbor. And if you have a cold, self-centered, self-absorbed heart, stony heart, that does not love and obey God and does not love neighbor as thyself, then how can you be a Christian? And if you're not a Christian, there's no light in the world. So darkness prevails, and look what happens. That's why the church is going to be judged first and foremost, and more severely, the Lord said, than the rest of the world, because we know better, and we claim to be Christian, but we're not really living like Jesus taught. We're not really living like Jesus. So, just some food for thought, folks. Because let me tell you, if every person that goes to church was actually went out there and did these things, lived the Beatitudes, did the corporal and spiritual works of mercy every day, the world would have to change for the better. And we wouldn't be in the end times right now, because evil wouldn't have prevailed so much. It wouldn't have triumphed. It wouldn't have taken so much ground so quickly. But if we neglect our responsibility, then guess what? The devil will move in quickly. If we don't protect our land, if we don't, if we don't do our job to keep light in the world, to keep evil at bay, evil will flood in like a floodgate being opened, like a tsunami, and take souls and take ground, and laws will change. And next thing you know, you're going to live in a very ungodly, end times, antichrist society. And that's what we have now, folks. So it is imperative that you not only go to church and claim to be a Catholic or Christian, but that you are a real one every day, and even in your own home behind closed doors, and that you live the gospel, that you do as Christ said. There's a lot more to being a Catholic or a Protestant Christian than just going to church on Sunday and only hanging out with other Christians. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, and most of you don't want to do it because, oh, well, I already work 80 hours a week. I got family to support and bills to pay. Yeah, we get it. So maybe you need to do without and get a smaller home so you don't have to work so hard, so you can do God's work. Because we're all given a short time down here, and we need to do what we're supposed to do for Him first. And most of us are not doing that. We're just surviving. We're just living worldly lives, giving unto Caesar what is Caesar's. But we're not fulfilling our obligation to God. So understand that. I think that's why a lot of people don't want to be Christian. They don't want to fake it. They don't want to lie and say, well, what's the point of me saying I'm a Christian when I don't really go to church? I don't really do what God says. I don't really, obey God. So I'm just not going to bother at all. And that's where we have a great falling away in these end times of people who just gave up because they don't want to have to sacrifice their time, their money, their talents. They don't want to do what God wants them to do. They want to do what they want to do. They want to live their life their way. You can't have it both ways, the Lord said. Hence the whole parable about the rich young ruler, which wasn't even a parable. He actually met the rich young ruler, and the rich young ruler rejected him and chose the world over being a disciple. Before I end this video, because we're almost at the church, what keeps coming to mind is tell my people that most of them, even you Christians, even you who go to church every day, are still living very much like the rich young ruler and not like Christ and His disciples. Think about that. We're still too worldly minded, worldly desires, self-centered, comfort-seeking, world-loving, life-loving. We're not doing it. We're just worldly people living like everybody else, but calling ourselves Catholic or Protestant Christians. Maybe we go to church, maybe we do some nice things, but at the end of the day, God knows that we're doing very little, and we're burying our talents instead of multiplying them. And you know what He says to the wicked, lazy servant who buried his talents and didn't even let the Lord collect interest instead of multiplying them? Know ye that you are not your own, and that you are here for a purpose and called for a purpose, to work for and belong to and glorify the Lord now. That is why He's giving you the opportunity to be a Christian. Not just so you can just go to heaven, but so that you can do this work. Then you go to heaven as a reward for your faithfulness and good work. So that's it. That's all I got. God bless. Enjoy the Assumption.